And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing. That's
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
They say, go see the African History Museum. Why do they start when the boats came? Why don't they start with the drums?
When we was kings.
Oh, they don't want it, but we are kings. But the 400 years doesn't have to deal with slavery. It has to deal with the Bible. It has to deal with us being disobedient to God. Us as 12 tribes of Judah, as a member of the Hebrew people, we are still inside of our genocide. 50% of all black deaths a year is abortion.
That's why you called Israel. Is it real? No, it's not. How did we leave there black and come back white? How did we leave there black and come back white? How did we leave there black and come back white? How did we leave there black and come back white? Can somebody answer that for me? Can somebody answer that for me? Can somebody answer that for me? Can somebody answer that for me?
I'm so glad you're here because you can bring great clarity. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sephardic Jews and how they were scattered? Because they went west.
I sure can.
Because the reason why I want to is because a lot of them, and a lot of people don't know this, are in the Caribbean.
They are.
In the islands.
And you're one of them. I know that.
I'm one of them.
I know that.
Because, you know, a lot of folk don't know that those roots are there. One of the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica, they were the Sephardic Jews. It's documented.
And they're all over the Caribbean, South America, Central America, and even the South Central United States.
Wow.
And DNA testing is a factor in all this now.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
Want to say peace and blessings to everyone. Want to say Shalom Lach, Mash Paka. Bear with me 1 second here. Want to get some things set here. Didn't get a chance to get my screen adjusted here. But want to start off by saying peace and blessings to everyone. Let me close some of these windows down here and let me share my screen here. And also I'm going to bring in a special guest, my cousin Benea. Let me bring them on in while I address my screen here. I want to say peace and blessings, cuz.
Hey, peace and blessings, cuz. Hope everything's going good.
Yep. Everything
well.
is great. Can't complain. Before we get started, family, want to give our condolences to the family of Dr. Trevor. It passed away yesterday, and we will, if anyone that would like to send support to the family, feel free to reach out to me. Also contact Sister Shonda, because he's a great person, a great teacher, a great leader in this Hebrew Israelite community. And I had the pleasure to talk to him, to speak with him several times offline. He called me a number of times from work, and just going over Hebrew, just going over a number of different things, and just getting encouraged by him on some of the things that things that I had to deal with. So let's show some love for him, and I'll make sure that in the community section that I post more information, far as if there's a contact to be able to send just a token of appreciation and support for the family. And let's really be sensitive with what we say, how we say it, because again, major pillar, a very good leader, a very good man. So I just want to encourage everyone that let's be the Israel that the Most High has called us to be, and let's be the community in terms of taking care of one another. Let's reach out again to Sister Shonda. You could reach out to myself offline if you want to send something to them, and I'll contact Sister Shonda offline just to try to work out something. If the family already have a Cash App or something that we can put a token of our appreciation for him, and also to help the family and witness to the family, minister to the family, and show them how much we really appreciate this gem that has transitioned. So again, our condolences to the family, to his ministry, to all the leaders, the pillars of his ministry. Our condolences to you guys. All right. So with that being said, family, we got a lot to cover tonight. We want to be straightforward and direct. We had quite a bit that we want to cover tonight, but I just want to show a couple more clips before we get started on why it's important for us to know our history. And I'm going to just refresh you guys' memory. One of the clips that I would play, before I do my playbooks, but I'm just going to play this clip again, so that way it may get up under some of you guys' skin, and rightfully so. It should, especially when you hear this particular rabbi say give the playbook on how to win our people over by simply telling us who we are, and not really doing it with accuracy. But let me play that clip, and then we'll get started.
If you cannot speak and talk about the history of who they are, then they will not really carry your story. They will not understand their story. So today, the first thing I was the greatest revelation I was telling you a while back, is that most people trying to reach, and I'm going to specifically talk today, and next week will be Spanish, the following week Asian, etc. But I'm going to talk specifically today about the black culture. And I wanted to right now, I know, and how many would agree that I am not black? Can I get a witness, everybody? Amen. Praise God. Praise God. Pretty white to me. Can I get an amen up in here? Yeah. Praise God. Amen. So here's the deal. But what I want to share with you is, I want to talk to you about is that, we went across the country and we found out there's certain things that help reach that culture and reach it effectively. And there's certain things that don't make it happen. Okay. And today I would like to talk about those things that do reach the culture, specifically the men of the culture. And the first thing I found out is this. I found out that they do not know their history. That's one of the things that I know. And so you have to tell them their history. So today I'm going to attempt to do that.
He's now positioned in a position of power and authority. He has given within him a belt. On one side is justice, and the other is blessing. He now is given the Constitution of God as a king. I give this to you, Bishop, as a sign of covenant, as a sign of release, as my sign of love for you. Amen. My brothers will come forth. 4 sons representing the 4 corners of the earth. They'll raise him up right now. He now is raised up from a commoner to a kingship. Come on, raise it up. And I'll walk him around. Come on! Come on, praise God.
And family, that's what happens. This is what we open ourselves up for when we allow ourselves or allow others to tell our history without, and not making it assertive or making it a point or making assertive efforts to learn this history ourselves, to be able to articulate it ourselves and teach our own. This is what happens. They'll take what they want, and selectively share what they want to share with us, but then at the same time use that to build up their ministries, to build up their whatever organizations and agendas that they are connected to. And this is why it's imperative for you guys, the information that we're sharing, make notes and vet the information and also recite it. In other words, teach it to your loved ones, teach it to your loved ones. We have to start at home when it comes to properly educating and uplifting. We got to start with uplifting our people. All right. And so one other clip I'll show, but before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and let Benaya say a few words. Again, shalom to you, cuz.
Hey, shalom, cuz. No, it's funny that when you showed that clip, I remember seeing that. Because I remember when that made its rounds around the internet, and one thing I didn't connect the dots about until just now was the clip of when he was he gave the information to his church about how to reach the Black community and about how we are the people, basically, essentially is what he said, but then he turns around and does and performs that ceremony at the late Eddie Long's church, and it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, well, when he was there, did he say it? You know what I mean? Like, did he share that information with that larger body of Black people? Because that would have been the perfect venue to bring out that truth, But anyway, it's like I said, I guess hindsight's just 2020. But yeah, just real quick, because I know we're pressed for time, but just what Dr. Kelly said is right on the money. You need to know your history, fam. And if you're looking at history, you're saying, well, maybe I don't need to know history that much. Maybe I just want to spend a whole lot of time in the scriptures and not know the history behind it. The thing that I would say is that when people come to you with these different various versions of history, if you know your history, it's going to be easy for you to be able to spot the lie. Right. And that's what, most high willing, once you go through a couple of these sessions, you'll be able to come up to speed to the point where you'll be able to spot the lie in 0 to 5 seconds and be able to point out specifically where that lie is. Right. And that way, you won't be susceptible to being misled or deceived. So, most high willing, we'll review some of that tonight.
I appreciate it, cuz. And family, what we're going to do, I'm going to show a couple of clips that's going to help lead us into what we're going to deal with, because we're going to continue to clear up a few things. And as you see, we have who we call Uncle O on the screen. So we're going to really give some clarity on Equiano, so that way you guys understand who he is and the integrity. But sometimes it's good to let others join in and pay their respects to our people, to their people, as we are the same people here in this country. But unfortunately, many of us are in different belief systems. But let's go ahead and set the tone with playing a couple of clips here from someone who actually defended Equiano a few years ago. So let's go ahead and let me show that clip here. All right, let's see here. Here we go.
Olu Da Equiano is the Sheikh Anta Diop of his time. That is an extraordinary statement to make. This is a statement where people are coming out of Africa in the shackles. And with the tools that they have, they begin to use scientific principles, begin to tell the world their origins, begin to tell the world that their stories, the other people's stories, are their stories, and that they are humanity itself. Equiano is an African of immense integrity that told the world the story before anyone really knew about how African people lived on the continent of Africa. I'm debating a brother who on one hand says that Equiano is great and he should be respected. On the other hand, he does the opposite. And the reason why he does the opposite is because simply I let him know when he was having a talk on the Hebrews that he left Equiano out. Equiano was a starting point. Dr. Issa, Dr. Jahi Issa nodded to me and said, Brother Reggie, he's leaving out Equiano. And I said, yeah. So I saw him at another talk and I said, you left him out. And then he began to discredit Equiano.
So who is this person that we're referring to? Well, you guys already know, because in part one of the Crafty Council, Blatant Liars, I addressed a blatant lie that he did in a debate with Guerrilla Hebrew. And what I want to do before we get into the Equiano portion of it, I want to go ahead and address a couple of things, refresh you guys' memory on that whole thing that I brought out, and make sure we understand, and make sure that they understand, that anyone that has anything that they want to say towards this, that no, I did not misunderstand anyone. I understood exactly what was done and what was said, and how sources were was misused, misrepresented, and not. And so we're going to go ahead and play it. Let me just go ahead and play it. I'm not going to just talk about it, but let me show you. Right. This is, did I take the clip down? I think I took the clip down. All right. But I'll share what Garfield, his response, right, to what I initially did on the matter. And if I have enough time, I'll upload it so you can see my original response to him. But this is what he responded with after doing part one.
As you can see with the slide, you can read it if you're watching live. But when you're watching a video, you can't see the words. But the main parts is the yellow parts that you have to pay attention to. The first thing somebody said in the audience, and I'm going to give everybody in the audience their respect, and so they could understand. What is a lancado? For anybody in the audience, what is a lancado? Why would Garfield put lancado there? Well, actually, it wasn't me. It's actually 93 who actually wrote this slide. But why would Garfield use this slide and say the lancado descendants?
Now, that should say a lot to you guys, right? That should tell, I mean, it speaks volumes of what we're dealing with here. You have someone that referred to himself as the Hebrew Slayer, But then he just openly admit that he didn't write this slide, that he actually had help and assistance through somebody else. I don't know who the person is. Don't really care too much about the person or anything like that. You know, not even worth mentioning the name. So, from what I understand, they made all kinds of videos trying to say that I misunderstood them. No, I did not misunderstand them. I stated exactly what transpired, and I'm going to try to get this up here, and then we're going to go ahead and give clarity again. Just do a refresher as we go into the additional lies that, as I pointed out in the initial video I did, that I spotted right off the bat. Benea, did you want to share anything?
No, I was just going to say, man, I wish I had somebody to do my research for me and do my slides. Oh goodness, I could go to bed early. You know, but yeah, it's interesting because you know, back when me and Brother Ron Dalton Jr. we were doing our conferences, you know, one of the things that we saw was that we kind of saw the attacks against the truth evolve, right? Like when we first came out, you know, Brother Ron, you know, he dealt mostly with, there's a lot of, you know, Jewish folks that would kind of pop up in the lives and the chats and stuff like that, and they would, you know, try to, you know, refute some of the truths that were out there. And so they, you know, of course, we held their feet to the fire. We held them to those old references, like we, you know, same references that we did today, that have, you know, kind of grown and grown and grown as far as, you know, the truth is concerned. But, you know, that was the attack vector back then, right? And so it evolved from, you know, the Jewish community. Then we started to see an uptick in the Christian, the apologists, you know, apologetics community at large, right? So they started to take up the banner, kind of sort of followed some of the similar attack vector, but you know they tended to stay in some of like the modern, you know, references, which is what we told them day one, which is, you know, you're not going to find you know, good luck finding the truth in those modern references. Your references our references are in those old books, right? And of course, like it evolved again, because some of the faces of those that were bringing out these counter arguments, you know, they weren't our faces. They weren't people from our own community. And shout out to, you know, Brother Dante, shout out to Brother the Teo Ministries that are kind of holding it down. You know, these, you know, when these attacks came out, they were of a different persuasion, right? And some of our brothers kind of pointed that out, like, why are you guys here? You know, you guys don't have nothing else better to do than to antagonize, right? You know, black, you know, us brews, right? They don't have nothing else to do, because we got a ton of stuff that we got to do, that we got to carve out our day to try to, you know, come and put together a presentation for our people. But then, you know, it evolved again, right? And this is the same thing that we saw like during the Black Panthers, you know, where the evolution was to find someone that looks like you to bring the truth to you, right? And we've seen that in you know, the Issachars, and we've seen that in some, you know, the Garfields now, that are trying to come forward, you know, bringing these truths, whereas behind them, you know, are the white apologists, right? Are the European apologists. And the reason why I can say that is because they come with the same playbook, the same material, right? The same material that we saw 2 years ago are the same material that they're bringing forth today, right? So, yeah, it's just been an evolution, fam, and this is just another thing that we'll just nip this in the bud and keep on moving.
Absolutely. And family, I located the short clip. So once that gets uploaded, I'll let you review it as well. So that way you can see exactly what was said in that clip, and how how Garfield blatantly, how he lied, misrepresented the source, right? The actual source, and stating, of course, in I guess whatever videos he tried to do counter, saying that he was just reading the summary, you know, but that's not how he presented the information in his debate. He did not say that this was a summary. He read it as if it was line by line of the original source. And let me let you see exactly and hear exactly what transpired, and then I'll give you a refresher, and then we'll go ahead and deal with clearing up Equiano.
What you need to understand of these dark-skinned Jews is that their father, because if you want to talk about that they are Jews in Africa, the fathers were normally white men. The Lankada descendants, the Luso Africans, became as dark as native Africans, reckon themselves still as if they were white Portuguese. They hate to be called black and want the status of their white progenitors. And by the way, none of these people came over on slave ships. You can't tie them to a slave ship. You can't show me a slave ship any of those black Jews, so-called black Jews, came over on. They were fostering the slave trade. They worked out the deals with the African kings.
And so as you hear, family, you know, you hear and see the lie as he's going through it. You know, he blatantly lied. But of course, the video served to do exactly what the purpose behind it, to show all who's connected. And rightfully so, he made it clear that he did not write that presentation. He didn't put all that presentation together himself, that he was assisted by some of the other people that are coming against our community outside of the conscious community. So here we have Dr. Reggie from the conscious community who actually defended Equiano. I mean, defended him. But then, and he actually, and I'll post the link inside the comment section for you guys to see on your at your leisure. But he actually defended. He don't believe in the scriptures from, you know, but he do believe in the historical aspects in terms of, you know, Africa, you know, how we all the communities interacted with each other. He believes those things. And as you see him being fair, he made it clear that, you know, the agenda of Garfield, that in spite of that one breath, he says that Equiano honorable, but then at another breath contradicts that. And this is the playbook we've seen. You know, people giving the impression that, hey, you know what, we support the bruise. We support you, Israel. Oh, guess what? We are Israel. And then they flip the script on us. You know, that's been a playbook. You know, anyone that want to start a new platform that go against Israel, or say that we the people of the book, one way or the other. If someone say we the people of the book, they go I was about to say platinum. They go you know, they go viral. You know, or if they want to do something like promote a conference or whatever the case may be, say something about our community. Why? Because we show up to defend as well. So let's go ahead and let me pick this thing apart again real quick, right? And I'm going to show you something addition that I didn't show, and I purposely did not share in video number 1, on why I already knew and already had my suspected that it wasn't just Garfield that was putting this thing together, that it was others' hands in it too. Why? Because some keywords and how it was purposely and deceptively presented. So here we go. Let's go to get into it. All right. And cuz feel free, anytime you want to jump in, feel free to jump in.
Okay, cuz. Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, cuz.
No, well, I was going to add one quick thing. The reason why, you know, we see the attacks on Equiano, you have to understand it from a strategic perspective. Equiano poses a problem for anyone that's going to, you know, go around and say things like, you know, show me a slave that got off the ship and that was saying that he was from, you know, he's an Israelite or he's a Brew. Equiano's that dude, right? Like he's literally that dude that went through the slave trade. He documented, you know, being on the ships and all this other stuff, and at the end of the day, then traced it back to being Israel. And he's problematic because of a timeline, right? Because a lot of these, you know, these apologists or, you know, urban apologists, what they do is that they'll try to snap the chalk line. And what I mean by that is they'll try to start the timeline for us being, you know, Black folks believing that we're Israel. they'll try to start that with with Cherry, or they'll try to start that in the maybe even the 1800s, because I've seen the goalposts kind of get moved right to the 1800s, whereas folks start saying things like, well, okay, well maybe Nat Turner, or maybe Vesey, okay, maybe those guys are included, and maybe that's where it started off, right? Equiano's problematic for you because Equiano comes before Turner, right? He comes before Vesey, right? So that's why he's problematic. From a strategic perspective, you have to get him off the board and you have to attack him. And that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And family, that's why it's great. It's great to be in this time that we're living in. It's really it's great in spite of all what's going on with the pandemic. We are living in a great time. We're seeing things being confirmed biblically, far as in terms of the prophecies. And as Benea pointed out, we are also having information that was not available to us, to our grandmothers and great grandmothers at one time, and great grandfathers at one time. But now we're able to have access to that same information. The Most High is allowing our generation, this generation, to actually witness and also be part of this awakening that we see taking place today. So Equiano is an important figure that we cannot allow anyone to disregard. Really, don't allow anyone to cause you to disregard any part of our history, regardless of how you may feel about certain things as an individual. Like, hey, you know what? I don't see that as being as significant as this over here. Guess what? It's all a piece in the puzzle. It's all a piece in the puzzle. And that's why they are going hard to try to discredit whatever they can, like the church in Savannah, right? Guess what? That's a major piece, because that church, literally, as Benea pointed out, it really shatters what has been taught about the history of the Black church. It shatters that. So again, this is important for you guys not to disregard. Do not allow anyone to have you disregard any portion of our history, because guess what? Whether you may think it's old or you're tired of hearing it over and over again, guess what? It's still important history. And there's a reason why Moses was instructed by the Most High to rehearse a situation into Joshua's ears, so that way he wouldn't forget. And we know we learned that the same thing was rehearsed in all the kings, all the leaders of Israel ear. And that's the Most High is going to set us up for victory, avenge us and set us up for victory. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started here. Moderators, you guys already know what to do if there's any trolls. Over here, we don't play that like Living Color. Homie don't play that. We don't play that over here. So, if you see anyone being rude, disrespectful, just straight up obnoxious, not disagreeing, because it's okay to disagree. That's not the issue. But if they're being disrespectful, that's a whole nother thing that we just don't tolerate. So let's make sure that our communication is a reflection of we being the people who are called to be a light into all the other nations. All right. So let me share with you real quick on your screen. Right. You guys probably remember this. This is the actual quote that Garfield read. He didn't say it was a source. He pointed over to here, right, and went right into this as if this is what this says. But nevertheless, the Lancado descendants, Luso-Africans, become as dark as Native Africans, reckon themselves still as if they were white Portuguese. They hate to be called Black and want the status of their white progenitors. See, this is alarming on a number of different levels, especially when you read the actual source and know that this is nowhere in the source, right? And we're going to do this one more time real quick, right? I'm not here to try to get into the Portuguese and who's who. That's when I did the initial video, I made it clear it's not about that. It's about calling out how these guys have a tendency of poorly using sources or interpolating sources as Benea pointed out, pushing the goalposts, moving the goalposts. Hey, you know what? Let me see your DNA. Do you have any DNA saying that you this right here, that you connected to Israel? Then you show you show that. Oh, well, DNA doesn't matter. It show me what tribe you connected to. Oh, well, you know what, that tribe doesn't matter. Hey, well, show me other proof that you have. Oh, well, you know what, that doesn't matter. See, family, the goalpost is going to always be moved, especially when you're dealing with people that just purposely want to be disagreeable. Right. All right. But anyway, go ahead,
just to kind of land back on what you just said. So just something real quick. So as a researcher, this is just something that I learned as I researched and started looking through this, reference after reference after reference after reference after reference, right? When you're researching brews back, from the 1800s, 1700s, whatever date, right? The thing that people fail to do, and I see them make this mistake over and over again, is whenever you're researching, when you're looking at that piece of information, you have to figure out which brews are they talking to, are they referring to? The example that comes to mind for me is a board game, right? You have to figure out who's on the board, right? So when we start talking about Africa, we start talking about Portuguese, we have to figure out who's on the board. Who can this be, right? We look at things like date, I remember one of the references they pointed out, it had an early 1400 date. That's before 1492. That's before King John II kicked out the brews. So that's before most of those Lancados was over there, right? So that means that possibly they're referring to a different type of Portuguese people, right? They could be referring to the white Portuguese. They could be, you have to figure out who's on the board, right? And that's one of the things that I've seen people fail to do over and over again when they go through these references, and then they try to make these assumptions, because I've kind of listened to some of the information in the background where they'll say, well, these are the Lancados, these are the Portuguese. You have to prove it, and this is the funny part, because when we start telling people, hey, look at the old references, and we try to make it easy because we try to find those references where everything is in that, in one place, where you don't have to go, pull up this reference, hold your thumb on this page, and then go over to another reference and try to put the pieces together. We try to get references that are, all inclusive, right? They mention the brews right there. There's no ambiguity about that. And they mention the color right there. There's no ambiguity about that, right? And these are the references that you see in the 1700s, 1800s, 1800s or whatnot. But the problem that I have, because they're able to find these references, right? Because what you're looking on the screen is like some of these references are old references, and I get excited because when I see people looking at these old references, but there's some ambiguity about it, right? Because it just mentions Portuguese, right? And so it could be anything, right? It could be the white Portuguese, it could be the black Portuguese. I'm just speaking to you from a researcher, right, perspective. As a researcher, I have to find some way to narrow that down to make it undeniable who we're speaking to, right? And that's the problem that they're at. They're in this weird, middle zone, because I can tell you, if they go too far to the right, they're gonna find black. That's what's going to happen, and that's why they're in this middle zone right here, where they're just mentioning names like Portuguese and stuff like that, and that's where they're trying to find some footing, but that's not going to work. Go ahead, guys.
Absolutely. Appreciate sharing that, Benea and family. That's why, again, as Benea points out a number of times, and hey, go to the old sources. And also, what I point out with that, the word Shammai, the Hebrew word Shammai, it means listen with intelligence. So be open to allow the words to listen, to speak to you, not going to these sources to try to prove a point. And that's what's happening with many of these guys. They are going to sources trying to prove a point and not allowing the sources to speak for itself. So they began to interpolate or eisegete, if you want to even get into that area, when we start dealing with hermeneutics and all of that, the science and all, but they start trying to insert what they want the text to say. And this right here is a blatant, right, rewrite of that text. No matter how they try to spin it, there's no misunderstanding. This is the issue right here, right? But notice what it says, right? Notice what it says. The Lancato descendants, and and again, when I did the initial video, it was not me about trying to get into, as Benea pointed out, the specifics about the Portuguese and all. I didn't get into all of that, but I did make it clear who the article is referring to. I mean, this particular area of the book is referring to, the multiple tribes here, and gave you proper clarity that they are not here in that text stating that the Mundingo and the other tribes mentioned. They are not saying that they hate to be called black, right? That's very deceptive, and that's pushing this narrative that that they really want to push, especially a lot of within the conscious community. Many of them push saying that the Hebrew Israelites hate Africans. Now, we have to be real. There are some groups within the community that hate Africans. We got to be real about that. Let's not candy coat it. It's not right. But there are some that do hate Africa, or hate Africans, or hate, if you say, use the term, for example, Ethiopian, right? Many they're ready to take your head off for that. Yep. So we're not called to do that. That's not what we're about here, And so again, this is what they put here is to push that narrative, to say, hey, Equiano, and all those that are, even, say that they are Israelites. Guess what? That they're, connected to the ancient Israelites. They hate being African. And that's what this deceptive rewrite is stating right here. They hate to be called black and want the status of their white progenitors. Now I'm going to show you why this, the triggers in here that just really was like stood out for me. And I made it a point not to speak on it in the initial video because I wanted to make sure we had the smoking gun, right? We are, when we say crafty counsel, we know exactly who we're dealing with. You know exactly who we're dealing with. And so that way we stop supporting the delusions. All right. So let me go through this real quick. They hated to be called black. Let's deal with this real quick. Right. This is the actual source. And as you can see, it doesn't say anything like that. Right. We see the Mundingos. And as I did in the previous lesson, right, you see the different groups right here that we're dealing with in this particular paragraph, this particular area of the book, right? You see it says here, Mundingos, Foliops, Folies, Floops, and Portuguese, right? We see the different groups that we're dealing with here, right? But then it says here, most numerous are called Mundingos, right? So begin to hone in on the Mundingos. All right. So that in itself, again, I'm not getting caught up in all the other stuff right now. We're not in this portion of the presentation. Even when I did the first video, wasn't trying to get into trying to identify who's who, but to call out how they purposely misrepresent sources, lie, and blatantly forge information. So again, you see here, it says Mundingos, right? Right. Till now, they are now very, I can't see that because I got it chopped out. Let me put it up here so I can see back here. All right. Yeah, it says Mundingos till they are now very near as black as they are, but as they still retain a sort of a bastard Portuguese language. All right. So let me highlight that again. So again, it says, but as they still retain a sort of a bastard Portuguese language called Creole, and as the children, as they Christian and married by the help of the priests sent yearly over hither from Esfago, one of the Cape de Verde Islands, they reckon themselves still as well as if they were actually white. And nothing angers them more than to call them Negroes, being that a term, that being a term used only for slaves. So this is making it clear, right, that they look like you and I, right? But it's saying that, right, their behaviors, and come on, family, we've all been there before. I know I have gone off to college, came back home, and some of my relatives back home said, I'm behaving like I'm white. They was like, hey, you sound like you white. You sound proper. This is the same context, basically saying that, hey, it says they reckon themselves still as well as if they were actually white. In other words, this is dealing with their mannerism. This is dealing with their behavior. And it says, and nothing angers them more than to call them Negroes, that being a term used only for slaves. So it's a big difference of having black or versus Negroes, and saying that they hate to be called black, versus putting the full context, saying that nothing angers them more than to call them Negroes, that being a term used only for slaves. So they did not want to be called Negro because that term was used interchangeably for slaves. And I shared that and gave clarity in part 1, showing some additional sources. But before we get into all of that, right, remember I highlighted progenitor. I gave a little breadcrumb of the word that really, one of the key words that really set me off to connecting the dots, right? And Garfield provided the smoking gun when he brought the other person up, or when he said that he didn't write this, he didn't do this full presentation by himself. He had help, right? So progenitor, right? This is a key word. I'm not going to get into all of that. But why is this word a red flag? Let me show you, family. You guys recognize this. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes. Now, some of you guys probably say, hey, well, what does that mean? Why is that important? Well, let me show you here, right? This is a key, right? These guys, that's what I'm saying. These guys are crafty, deceptive. They use the word progenitor because guess what? Many brews have the Zondervan Bible Dictionary inside your, what I would call the startup kit, and we'll go right to here to talk about him, saying, hey, he became the progenitor. Notice what it says, progenitor of dark races. So dark races in this definition connects to the Ethiopians, the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So in that deceptive post that they made, they want to make sure they push the narrative that, guess what? The Israelites hate, guess what? The dark races, in other words, Africa. And notice Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Dark races. When you see dark races, and when you see dark in their little forgery that they did, that is what they're referring to. That's what it refers to. That's why I stood out like a sore thumb when I saw this and knew that he got assisted. He got assisted with that presentation and who it came from. Because you guys remember maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I had to address the whole Zondervan Bible Dictionary situation. I did a video, Dante did a video as well, and we addressed it. So again, that was purposely try to write it to sound similar to this right here. Use the word progenitor, right? But they put white progenitors, right? And said that they hate being called what? Black. They hate being called what? Dark. They hate being called Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites, right? This, stood out clear as day, right? So let's go back here. Right? Notice what's highlighted. They hate to be called black, want the status of their white progenitors. So they hate to be called Egyptian. They hate to be called Ethiopian. They hate to be called, as we just highlighted. But that's not what the text says. All of this is a complete lie. They made it clear by putting here what? White progenitors. because when the Zondervan Bible Dictionary and the definition for ham, it doesn't, it makes it clear that the Negroes, not the Negroes. But then when we get to Shem, it doesn't mention anything about the Negroes, right? So where are we inside that book, right? So that's the thing, that's the key that really stood out, that made me see exactly, all right, here it is. There's nothing that these guys would not stoop to. No, not a point. There's not enough depth that they would not go beyond to say, hey, you know what? They're going to push their agenda. Any thoughts on Benaya?
Yeah. So just to reiterate, so you're right. The reference doesn't say Lancados, and that's something that they're trying to imply there. But I just want to do is take 2 seconds or a few seconds to answer it from a Lancado perspective. Like, let's say, for instance, like we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, well, this was talking about Lancados. How do you? And this is the problem with that, right? And this is the problem that I keep telling you. You have to immerse yourself in the environment and what's going on in order to be able to pull stuff out of here, right? So if you guys ever checked out Hidden Hebrews, right? Some of the videos that I put out in Hidden Hebrews, what I talk about when we talk about the Portuguese, there's a famous story about the Portuguese that they're taking the children away from the parents, right? And taking the children away from the parents and then them shipping them over to Africa. Not only are they just shipping the children over to Africa by themselves, they are literally going with the white Portuguese over to these islands, right? So this is like the first batch of children. And I'm not sure if I did a good job of this in the lessons, but one of the questions I would ask is like, what do you think happened to those children that are on those islands with those white men? These Catholic Christian white men all along with these snatched babies. What do you think that they were doing, right? And so let's say, for instance, if you gave them the benefit of the doubt, you said, hey, okay, well, they're talking about Lancados. My question would be, which Lancados are you talking about? Because are you talking about the children that were snatched from the parents that went over to these islands and then made their way over to the African continent? Are you talking about the Brews that fled directly from Spain directly into the northern part of Africa and then went down that way? I mean, there's in the King David video part 2, I literally outlined the 4 different paths of the Brews coming from Iberia into Africa, right? And the reason why I'm bringing that up is that when you bring out these references, you have to account for that, and there's no accounting for that, and that's my problem with these references that they're going to, because there's ambiguity about these references. And it's like you have to bypass like 300 references talking about the Portuguese being black to land here. I mean, you literally have to drive like going into a different state to come to this reference, right? Where you got these ambiguous references, right? And that's the problem that I have with this scholarship. The references are there, fam. They just don't want to use them.
And to your point, and that's why I made it clear in the initial video, I'm not getting into, the goal was not to get into all the specifics, but just to show how they are blatantly misusing a source here. In matter of fact, I'm gonna play the clip one more time, and you guys are here. Garfield never said that and never gave explanation. He read it as if it was part of the actual source.
That's right.
He didn't make a distinction to say, hey, you know what? This is just, these are my own words. These are just a summary of what you see over here, even though this is still a lie, a blatant lie. But he didn't even do that. In that debate, he literally, just what you heard is what he did. So let me play it real quick. And like I said, because for me, and I totally understand and I agree, even just that them not even giving proper clarity on the Lancados. But for me, it was just blatantly misuse of the source, something that we had to deal with growing up in the church.
Right.
Right. Not properly teaching sources.
Right.
The sources that they have. Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. Right. So, but let me play this real quick, and then that way, family, you guys can hear as just how Garfield presented this information.
What you need to understand of these dark-skinned Jews is that their father, because if you want to talk about that they are Jews in Africa, the fathers were normally white men. The Lankada descendants, the Luso Africans, became as dark as native Africans, reckon themselves still as if they were white Portuguese. They hate to be called black and want the status of their white progenitors. And by the way, none of these people came over on slave ships. You can't tie them to a slave ship. You can't show me a slave ship any of those black Jews, so-called black Jews, came over on. They were fostering the slave trade. They worked out the deals with the African kings.
And see, you don't even hear him even read to say, okay, if they say, hey, this is, he's presented as if it's a summary. Well, why didn't he read the original text? Because that's what he should have read, is the original text, or made it clear. These are my own words. This is what it actually says. And I'm paraphrasing, and this is what I'm paraphrasing, even though, again, this is completely off of what he put here. So completely deceptive, right? And this is what we deal with on a regular basis of those that are coming against our community. You know, the information is there. Hey, if you disagree, if you believe we're not the people of the book, you're entitled to believe that, but make sure that you're not trying to forge information to try to substantiate your claim, right? And so this is why I just want to highlight for you guys. This is what really stood out for me. When I saw that, this was a red flag. They hate to be called black, right? And their reasoning that they said that, hey, they want the status of their white daddies, basically, their white progenitors, their white fathers. And that's nowhere in the source, whether they paraphrasing or not. That's a complete blatant lie, interpolating the actual source, right? And so when we go back here, right, it makes it clear, right, exactly what the issue is. It says nothing angers them more than to be called Negroes, that being a term used only for slaves and not their understanding the true meaning of the word is the reason of their being their being so very much affronted at. Excuse me, reading this old English, I got to make sure I see those F's and use it as an S and all that other, you know. But anyway, but you guys see it here. Let me read it one more time on what that actual issue is. It says, nothing angers them more, right? Didn't say that they want to be like their white progenitors. It says nothing angers them more than to call them Negroes, that being a term used only for slaves. And they're not understanding the true meaning of the word is the reason of their being so very much affronted at it. In other words, this is saying that is their reason for not wanting to be called the Negro, because that word was used interchangeably for slave, period. Didn't have anything to do with them wanting to be like some so-called, as they try to interpolate the text, white progenitors, white fathers. Had nothing to do with it. They did not want to be called Negroes because of that word being used interchangeably with slave. And the last point to support what I just pointed out, right? Remember in the part one, I gave sources, right? That word Negro was used interchangeably with slave. I went to the Negro Law of South Carolina, 1818. Right. And I pointed out, right. Let me just fast forward. Right. This is the Negro Law of South Carolina. Right. 1818. Notice what they say about Negroes. Right. The term Negro is confined to African slaves. Wait a minute. I think what do you think? Cuz should I bring the garbage can out, or is that too early?
You can bring it out, cuz.
Let me bring the garbage can out, because it's right there in your face. And I said this in part one.
And there's other references too. I'm just biting my tongue, fam. You know what I'm saying? Like when I hear Brother Garfield talk about stuff about the Portuguese and the slave trade, there's a partial truth to that I'd like to clean up, but I know we got a lot of information to get to, so I'm trying to hold my mule, so to speak. Even with this one, there's a couple of references I can think of, boom, 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 off the top of my head that would be perfect for this, but we just gonna have to hold off. I might just have to do a separate video on that, fam. But there's some references that'll clear this thing right on up. Carry on.
Absolutely. And see, and with me, when I did part 1, I just used a couple of sources. I used the slavery in the Catholic Church, when they used Negro for slave, more for the group, the Muslims that Portuguese were at war with, how they used the term Moor for them, and you had Saracens. You know what I mean? I showed in part 1 that word Negro was being used interchangeably with slave. So not just with this source, and as you pointed out, because you have other sources as well. And think about it. This is what they were saying. They said that they had a problem with being called what? Negro, because of it being used what? As slave. And even in the source, they said, again, let me bring the source back up, and then we'll go ahead and get into Uncle O here. Let's see here. Let's go back here. It says here, didn't say anything of them wanting to be white, but it says, and nothing angers them more than to call them Negroes, that being a term they use only for slaves, Negro, only for slaves. And they're not understanding what it says, and they're not understanding the true meaning of the word is the reason. Said, so the writer here says that they really don't understand the true meaning of the word, but their issue is, being called a Negro, being called a slave. That's all this text is actually saying. And it says, again, is the reason of their being so very much affronted at it. So this right here gives the actual reason for why they were upset. So going into what they're trying to do is go into all about the last cards and all that other stuff. That's them trying to deflect what they got caught with. Because correct me if I'm wrong, because the answer is right there for why they are upset.
Yeah, definitely. Negroes the term Negroes was a problem, and like I said, it's a topic that could use more exploration, because, like I said, I know off the top of my head, just from dealing with this stuff, as much as we do, that there's other dynamics to it. Like, people don't know that the black Portuguese that are very black, very dark, brown skin, all those synonyms that you can think of that have skulls the same as Negroes, right? That have DNA that are found in the so-called African Americans today. People don't know that the black Portuguese, like in some of these references that we already shared, that the black Portuguese literally on paper that they had a problem or a beef with Negroes. And to your point, maybe it was with the term Negroes, and that goes back to what I said. Like, there is a dynamic. Like, this environment on the west coast of Africa is dynamic, and what's happening is this: people are trying to simplify it, and that's getting them in trouble. With some of these references and some of these lessons that are coming out, because they're not accounting for the backstory. They're not accounting for all the things that are occurring in the environment, and they're straight up because they're getting confused. So most High willing, we'll carve out time on our busy schedule and clear this up with some additional videos.
Absolutely, appreciate it, cuz and family, as you see, and as Benea just pointed out, that word Negro, I mean, those were fighting words to some. My grandmother, I'll be real with you, my grandmother did not want to be called Negro. Some of my relatives, great uncles and all that, great aunts, they didn't want to be called Negro, because exactly what they share with me about, they would say, I'm not a slave. So some of you guys probably heard this from some of your relatives, as far as your, that's in that older generation that lived during the 50s, the the 30s, going back in that timeline. Some of your great aunts and uncles and great grandmother they did not want to be called that term, that word Negro. And actually, some of them didn't even want to be called black because of, again, that word black and Negro was interchangeable when it came to being used synonymously with the word slave. That's why you have what is called the black codes, which sometimes some will call them slave codes, and some documents, and others would call it Negro codes and slave codes. So these words were used interchangeably, and especially depending on the region, you have to really understand how it's being used in that region. Kind of like me being from up north, and we may say chumpy up back home, and some of you guys probably say, hey, what is chumpy? Well, that was something that we used interchangeable with everything, whether it was a pair of sneakers, like, hey man, I got to go pick me up a pair of chumpies, or the car broke down, my chumpy broke down, right? So you have to understand the area, and as Benea pointed out, this is where you have to really study the history of the area to know how certain words are being used, and now that's getting a whole nother area of study. But you have to really get, understand the culture. You have to understand the area. You have to understand that country that those words are being used, or whether it's a source or origin, or just how they're using it. So with that being said, and I know we touched on this, so let me go ahead and fast forward, and we're going to deal with. Let me go ahead and get to it right now. I want to bypass all of this, but let's go ahead and get into answer these questions, because I know we got a lot to deal with as well. And because Benea, I know you got you got some information that you're going to really share that's going to bless the people and really knock down a lot of the deceptive things that have been taught about Equiano. So did Equiano believe that the Igbos descended from white people? We're going to answer that question. Did Olaudah Equiano say that the Igbos descended from white people? Did he say that? Did he, just the things that Garfield pointed out, right? And I'm going to go ahead and put your presentation up, but this is just what you see on the screen is just me going to the actual book of Equiano's book, The Interesting Narrative, and I highlighted that portion that Garfield was referring to. But I'll go ahead and bring up your slide, and that way you could tell me how you want me to navigate through it. Okay.
Okay. Well, all right. As you're bringing it up, cuz just kind of give our listening audience just some background information. So you may probably heard some videos out there about the history of Equiano, Olaudah Equiano. I know when I was coming into the awakening. Oh man, what's the name of that ministry out there? I can't think of the brother's name, but anyway, there's a brother out there that I thought that did an excellent job as far as giving like a brief overview of Olaudah Equiano. And basically, if you're not familiar with him, he's a someone that went through the slave trade, and he writes an autobiography, and he describes about how he was kidnapped, from his home, over in the territory of Igbo, and he describes his customs and stuff like that. And basically he talks about Israel, right, and his people, in the similarities and stuff like that. And some of that stuff we'll touch on today, most high willing. But then he also describes the horrible transatlantic slave trade. I mean, literally, he describes being on the ships, the smell, the stench, the killing, the murders, people dying, being thrown overboard. That sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff that you'll find in his book. The interesting travels of. Let me pull it up here so I don't misquote it. Or actually, do you have his book up, cuz? The interesting narrative of the life of Olaudah Equiano, or Gustavo Vassa, the African. That's the full name of the book, and it's an autobiography. But the what makes his book powerful, right? It's a first-hand account of the way he was captured, of the way he was, basically kidnapped, right? And it was a first-hand account of him being on the ships, right? How they treated him is a first-hand account of him being a slave in the West Indies and also a slave in the States, right? Even though that time was relatively brief. And and so over the years, what has happened was, so Ola Ude, if you don't know, he was an abolitionist, so he was against slavery, right? Contrary to the what's the narrative that's being spun up there, he was a well-known abolitionist, right? And even his book, right? When you look at his book, he's writing it to Queen Charlotte, right? And he's petitioning her. And I don't think I have that in this slide, because this slide deck was getting too long. But basically, he's petitioning her to let his people go, basically, right? He's pleading to the queen on behalf of his enslaved people. That's who he is, fam, right? That's who he is. And because he was one that stood up against slavery during a time when slavery was at its peak, in a nation that was leading slavery at that time, right? Because wasn't England, if I'm correct, England was one of the leaders in the slavery at that time. He's trying to plead his case to, for this thing to stop. And as you can imagine, folks that are making cash hand over foot, they're not going to sit back and let this happen. What do? They attack him. So after the publication of his book, even during his time, there were attacks that came out against him, because he was around to defend himself. He did. And Most High willing, we'll read how he defended himself. But what's happened is, fam, is that after he passed away, he was laid to rest, the attacks continued, right? And this was where you'll have books called, there's a book out there called Equiano the African, biography of a self-made man. And this is, European, right? So European is coming after this brother, and basically he's saying, hey, he challenging his Igbo hood, basically, his African hood, saying one of the things he was saying, like, hey, you're not an African, you're born in South Carolina. And it's funny because we got some clips about how the slave masters imputed, or they gave you that they gave you that identity. It wasn't like slaves went around and they were able to have their own identity of where they're from and who they are. No. The slave master was all over that. So the slave master says you was from Georgia, wink. You was from Georgia, and that's what happened. But actually, cuz let me see what you got on the screen, because I don't think I have it. Oh, good. Yeah. So what happened was that, so this guy came out against Equiano. He tried to challenge his book, tried to refute it. We call him Uncle O. So from here on out, if I can remember, I'm going to call Equiano Uncle O, right? Because he's a Igbo, he's a brother, he's a relative. So Uncle O, he's not around to stand up for himself, to defend himself against these people that are coming against him. So we, as his descendants, are going to stand in his place, Most High willing. So this European gentleman came out against him, and one of the things that he brought out against his brother was that he said, well, first of all, Equiano isn't even African. He was born in South Carolina. Right. And so these are what you see on the screen are the two things that he brought out as fact, according in his eyes, that Equiano was in fact born in South Carolina. So in 1759, Equiano had a baptismal record. Right. And so in 1759, you see the information there on the screen. On the baptismal record, it read Carolina. And so it's funny, fam, because one of the things I keep telling people, you better check the references yourself. Because if they go out and give you, the people that enslave you, interpret this for you, there may be some changes along the way. And you'll see it in actually this next one down. But
so, cuz, real quick.
Yeah.
So just and this is for clarity for the people. Mm-hmm. So are you saying that some of the talking points we're hearing, this is the source right here, this guy right here?
That is the source. That's where it's coming from. People usually have that book in hand while they're giving presentations, and they're reading from it, and they're taking sound bites off of his presentation. European coming against our brother Equiano. the abolitionists. Yes, sir.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And like I said, he tries to make several points in there. These are some of the key points that you can kind of pull out of this book. These are some of the key points in this book that people take out and they try to run with it. Right? They'll say, well, 1759, Equiano, on his baptismal record, it said he was from Carolina. Family, 1759, the man was a slave. And what people try to do, they try to make it as if Equiano's like sitting down. He has the leisure of sitting down and writing down who he was and where he's from as a black slave. Family, he's a slave. Traditionally, when you see like things like slave manifests, shipping manifests, those aren't slaves that are sitting there leisurely saying, "Okay, I'm here. Let me grab that manifest and write down my name." No, I don't think anybody would say that, right? Well, although we do have at least one person that's out there saying that, right? That Equiano wrote this 1759 entry by hand, right? It was either this one, and actually I think that too was a misquote. What I'm talking about is in Brother Garfield's. He has a presentation where he's going against Equiano. He's literally taking up the same talking points of this European gentleman, right? Going against Equiano, and the two dates are 1759, but the reference that Garfield shows is a 1755 reference, which is incorrect, first of all. And that's what we were talking about, making sure your references match what you're talking about. Because he was doing the exact same thing that my cousin Kelly just showed on in the earlier session. And that is the reference that he showed didn't match up with what he was talking about. Like he was talking about Equiano being called Gustavo's Vassar, right? But then he said, he's like, yep, but this is also showing that he's from Carolina. On that record, there was no Carolina on that record, nowhere to be found. This is what we're talking about, fam. That this blatant lying, this blatant misinformation, right? So anyway, but that's just a quick note. Top entry on the screen. He was a slave, right? And so that's what even the guys that did stick up for Equiano, they pointed it out. Dude, he was a slave. He wasn't writing down his own information. And even on the one below, it says 1773. There was a Royal Navy muster roll, from Constantine. And basically on this ship manifest, there's a name, what they're saying is that Equiano's name is on that list. And he put on that list himself that he's from South Carolina. Check the receipts, fam. Check the receipts. That's what I'm telling you. When you look at these new references, and these new references are trying to interpret these old references on your behalf, they get a little funny. Because in this one, when you look at the original reference, the name that's on the manifest isn't Gustavo Vassar. It's Gustavo Winston, if I got that correct. In other words, it ain't even his name. But because it has Gustavo as the first name, they say, "Oh no, that's him. No, that's him. Right? The names don't match, fam. The name does not match. But he's rolling with it, and what you'll see is that unfortunately, folks like Garfield and some of these other guys, they're rolling with the same narrative. So if you go to the next slide, because so as we go through this one, yeah, and I'm sorry. Yeah, fam, that's what I was talking about a few minutes ago. The record at the top, right? That's the one where he was a slave during that time, and the record at the bottom, that's where his name doesn't even match what's on the roll, on the record. But people are running with these two things as proof, air quotes, that Gustavo Vassar is from South Carolina. Just to show you got to check the receipts, fam. That's all I'm saying. All right, fam. And because if you want to advance the slide, and I just want to reiterate. So basically, what we're going to do, fam, we're going to, my goal is to set the record straight, right? My goal is to present the references to you. I expect you, fam, to come behind me, check me, check it, verify the references yourself, read the references for yourself, so that you will know for yourself what's true and what's a lie, right? What's true and what's false, right? And hopefully, as we go through this presentation, you'll start to see a pattern, because what my cousin Kelly pointed out in the first session, that is just the beginning of the pattern. And what we're going to do, because I think there was some comments about, well, cousin Kelly, it's funny that he picked this reference and not this other reference. Dude, if you only knew, right? If you only knew what these other references that we're kind of sitting on here. But yeah, because if you don't mind just going to the next slide here. What's my name? So this is I'm gonna start, fam, I'm gonna hit you in the gut here. Most folks know that Aluda Equiano has at least two names. I said at least two names. They never talk about that third one. So when he was over in Africa, he said that his name was Aluda Equiano, right? But then when he came over to the West Indies, right, he had another name. Then when he was taken by in Virginia, taking it from Virginia into the ship, he was given Gustavo Vasa. We got the references for that, but nobody talks about that second name. Why is that? Why is that, fam? Let's take a look, because if you don't mind going to the next thing. Okay, so this is from his book. That's the book if you guys want to go out and get it. Can you advance the slide? Oh, and just also note the dates. So he was born in 1745 and passed away in 1797. So he was passed away before the 1800s, right? And just a quick note, his book came out in the latter part of his life, right? And you can even pull that up in Wikipedia. You'll see that all the versions that he put out were in the latter part of his life. It wasn't in the beginning. All right, because if you don't mind advancing. All right, so what's that name? What is his name? So let's read it. It says, while I was on board this ship, my captain and master named me Gustavo Vasa. All right, so this is in Virginia, I believe. It says, I at the time began to understand him a little and refused to be called so, and told him as well as I could that I would be called Jacob. That's making people nervous, because I can hear him running to the closet.
Wait a minute.
Running to the closet.
Wait a minute. But wait a minute. They weren't. None of us were proclaiming that, right?
Yeah. I mean, but who's Jacob in the scriptures?
Who's Jacob? I mean, wait a minute. Read that again for the people in the back.
While I was on board this ship, my captain and master, he just got bought again, named me Gustavo Vasa. I, at that time, began to understand him a little and refused to be called so, and told him as well as I could that I would be called Jacob, aka Yisrael. Hallelujah.
Come on, man. Let me get a garbage. I got to pull out the garbage can. Let me pull out the garbage can.
Man,
because I gotta, let me just give a 3-piece real quick.
And you wonder why people going after him so hard, because the dude's calling himself Israel. He calling himself Jacob.
Wait a minute. One more time. This is for Sister Carol, right? This animation is for Sister Carol right here. Because you said he called himself Jacob. He said, call me Israel, family.
I told him as well as I could that I would be called Jacob.
Let me pull out this animation.
Happy feet himself.
Read it one more time for the people, so the people could really understand exactly what he's saying here.
Yeah. While I was on board this ship, my captain and master named me Gustavo Vasa. So his new master named him that. And I, at the time, began to understand him a little. So he wasn't speaking plain English, right? This for the, like you said, for the people in the back that would say that he wasn't African. At this time, he couldn't understand him but a little, and refused to be called so, and told him as well I could that I would be called Jacob.
Sorry about that, cuz. I had to do it one more time.
Told him as well as I could that I would be called Jacob. But let's get the rest of it, fam, because just check this out. It says, but he said I should not, and still called me Gustavo Vasa. Right. So now, fam, you know what you can see where that name's coming from. And this should start sounding familiar, like that Kunta Kinte scene that you guys see in those old slave movies.
Exactly.
Your name is what did he say his name?
Toby.
Toby. Your name is Toby. I said, no, my name is Kunta. Let's see what happened to Gustavo Vasa, right? Let's see what happened to Uncle O when he tried to buck up against his new masters. Let's see what happened. It says, when I refused to answer to my new name, which I at first did, it gained me a cuff. That sounds like a punch.
Yeah.
So at length, in other words, after a while, I submitted and was obliged to bear the present name. Listen, fam, says, was obliged to bear the present name by which I have been known ever since. All right. So that's one of those interesting facts about Equiano. It's plain as day. It's in his book, but nobody talks about it. They'll talk about his other two names all day, but you won't hear him talk about Israel. Why is that, fam? They had all this time to bring out the fact that his second name was Jacob. How come you haven't heard about that? All right, I digress. I know we got a lot of terrible.
Wait a minute, but he said no one on the slave ship was saying that they're Israel.
Yeah, and he literally
go ahead, because I'm sorry.
Oh, he literally had the name of Jacob. But
wow.
But yeah, fam. So because if you could advance, I think it's 3 pages, because I think the next 2 slides we've already covered. Yeah, we covered that one already. Covered that one. All right. So on to the next slide. And so this one has to do with,
is this the clip you want me to show?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I think that this is a slide number 10, right?
Yes.
Okay. I want to show the clip. Let me bring the clip up.
Yeah, so fam, we're going to first listen to the misinformation, and then we're going to clear it up afterwards on the back end.
All right, here's clip number 10.
This is a picture of the primary. This is a picture of the primary, right? Where he was 9 years old, and he put that one. He was what? His name was Gustavo Vasa.
It is playing?
Oh, I'm sorry, Gustavo Vasa. This is it right here. He wrote and gave them information that his name is Gustavo Vasa and he was born in South Carolina. That's what he said. All right, that's out of his mouth.
That's what he said. That was out of his mouth. I'm telling you, fam, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. So that's what he said. That's out of his mouth. So basically, he said that, that he was born in South Carolina. His name was Gustavo Vasa, and he was born in South Carolina. And we just read in that previous book, right, that that name was given to him, right? That he literally said, "My name is Jacob," right? And then they beat that Gustavo Vasa into him. But then he's also saying, also making the statement that he's also was born in Carolina, right? So let's take a look at that reference ourselves. So because if you can go to advance to the next slide. Okay, I know it's hard to read, fam, but basically the section that we're interested in is the section at the top. And Gustavo Vasa's information is on the second line, right? And what you see is you see the shorthand from, you see kind of in the middle, it says Gust.Vasa.capt. Right? What you do not see is South.Carolina. or Carolina. On any of this, right? But this is what one of the things that we were saying, like the references that they showing you don't match up with what they talking about, fam. That's facts. That's facts. So he was showing this one talking about he's from South Carolina. South Carolina's not on here. All right. So if we can go advance to the next slide, please, cuz. All right. And so as we were talking about it at the top of this next session, Igbos come from white men, right? That was a statement as well. Do we have the clip for that? I just want you all to listen to the statement, and then we'll clean it up on the back end. Yeah, because I think that one's come from slide 14.
Okay, here we go.
Look at how they think. As to the difference of color, this is from Equiano. Look at this. As to the difference of color between the Eboan Africans and the modern Jews, I shall not presume to account for it. It is a subject which has engaged the pens of men of both genius and learning and is far above my strength. The most able and reverend Mr. T. Clarkson, however, in his much admired essay on the slavery and the commerce of the human species, has ascertained that the cause in manner that once solves every objection on that account, and on my mind at least, has produced the fullest conviction. I shall therefore refer to that performance for their theory. Contenting myself with extracting a fact as related by Dr. Mitchell, the Spaniards who have inhabited America under the torrid zone for any time are become as dark colored as our native Indians of Virginia, of which I myself have been a witness. There's also another incident of a Portuguese settlement at Mitombo, a river in Sierra Leone, where the inhabitants are bred from a mixture of the first... I don't think that's related. But the point that why I play that is because they're saying that you turn black, you're really white. You're supposed to, if you're a Jew, you're white. And the reason why you turn dark is because you go in the sun. That's what his sources are saying. They believe in the Hamitic hypothesis. So whoever you quote, you talk about my research methodology, brother, I'm going to tell you something right now. Ain't nobody on the scene doing it like us.
I believe the part that was missing was where he was saying that they were, they basically that the Igbos were white, right? The Igbos were white. So let's clean this. Let's go ahead and clean this up, fam. So basically, in Equiano's book, in Uncle O's book, and hopefully my audio is okay, guys. But in Uncle O's book, he then states, like, after he goes into their practices and their practices, matching up with Israel. He then states, and actually, because do you actually have that that part of Uncle O's book where he talks about the difference in color? Because
let me see if I can pull it up here.
If not, I think I may.
Let me see if I can share it.
Just want everybody to.
Now, if need be, I'll share I'm going to end this share for a second.
All right.
And if I can't share, I'll share my entire screen and
Okay.
I'll just switch it over to it so you can see it.
Okay.
But let me see if I can share my Kindle.
Yeah. So basically, fam, in this section in his book, Uncle O was saying that, say, hey, I mean, he basically in the section right just before, and this is what I want to show you. I don't just want to tell you about it. I want you to see it for yourself. But basically, in the section before, Uncle O's going in on about their practices being the same as the brews. He's going down the list and just showing people about what's matching up, right? And then he ends it, and then once he goes to the next paragraph, he says, "Now, as for the difference of color between the Eboan and the modern day Jews, basically he's saying, that's above my pay grade, right?" And then he defers to another gentleman. Is that it? Let me see if I can see it on your screen. Might be too. Is that it?
You want me to go to his book, or you want me to go to the essay? I could go to the book where.
Yeah, if you could go to his book. I just want.
Okay, I'll go to his book.
The actual statement, and you could find it if you do a search.
Right here, you said as to the difference between colors between the.
Yeah. So that's it, fam. So this is what we was reading. As to the difference of color. Let me see if I can increase the.
Actually, because I actually screen printed this. If you want me to, how I do with my ripped pages. So if you want me, I can pull that up. If that'll make it easier.
I mean, it's up to family that's in the chat, because I just did a full screen on my window, and I can actually see it.
Is that better? I'm trying to.
Well, I lost the bottom part of it.
All right.
I think it was okay before.
All right. Can you still see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So hopefully you all's eyes are better than mine. But basically, you can see off to the left. This is the part that we're talking about, fam. Like, as to the difference of color between the Igboan, so Igbo Africans, right, and the modern Jews, I shall not presume to account for it. It is a subject which has engaged the pens of men of both genius and learning, and is far above my strength. In other words, hey, that's above my pay grade. You know, I can't tell it, right? I can't really say anything about it. But let's see what he goes. He says, the most able, Reverend Mr. T. Clarkson, however, in his much admired essay on the slavery and commerce of the human species, has ascertained the cause in a manner that at once solves every objection on that account. And on my mind, at least, has produced the fullest conviction. I shall therefore refer to that performance for the theory, contenting myself with the extracting a fact as related by Dr. Mitchell. The Spaniards who have inhabited America under the torrid zone for any time are become dark colored, as are native Indians of Virginia, of which I myself have been a witness. There is also another instance of a Portuguese settlement in Motamba. Forgive me if I mess up these names. A river in Sierra Leone, where the inhabitants are bred from a mixture of the first Portuguese discovered with the natives, and are now become in their complexion and in woolly quality of their hair perfect Negroes, retaining, however, a smattering of the Portuguese language. Aha, fam. You see, the Igbos are saying that they're white. That's what cousin Uncle O is saying. That's what they're saying, that they're white. Okay, fam, let's go to the reference. Keep telling you, fam.
It's unbelievable though, because how, you know, to even say that, you know, to say that Uncle O believed that the Igbos come from white people. I mean, it's nowhere in any of the sources, but for him to even say that, and in matter of fact, not even just say him, but all of them pushing this narrative, because they started pushing this narrative that when we start seeing, you know, the black Portuguese, so to speak, the black Jews per se, that actually we're talking about referring to people that are descended from white Portuguese, black people descended from white people.
Yeah. And
so we see that entire group running with this narrative. So it's almost like a match made in heaven for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's been like the defense of the establishment of the folks that are in Israel today. That, you know, they are a representation of what Israel was and is, and that any phenotypes, any, you know, people that look different from them, you know, either they either adopted, or they were either what's the word I'm looking for, converted, right, or, you know, they were slaves, right? Basically, somehow, some way, we're not legit, is what I'm saying. Is that's been the narrative all this time, right? And so that's why you see, you know, these types of references about when people start bringing things about, yeah, they changed colors, and because they were white at first, but then they changed to dark, right? So this is a perfect example of, you need yourself to go to the source, right? Because you were just told that the Igbos, they themselves said that they're white. I know in the clip we didn't necessarily have that sound bite, but we got the sound bite, fam. So because do we have now, if we could switch over, I just want people to kind of have in their mind this reference, right? We're looking at a reference from this is from Reverend Mr. T. Clarkson. And the section that's highlighted is where it says the Spaniards who have inhabited America under the torrid zone, right? Because basically back then, what they believed, fam, that the theory that was going around was that, you know, it was climate that caused you to be light, or climate that caused you to be dark. But yeah, because if we can go to the source, and we'll read the part that they didn't read.
Can you see it, cuz?
Yep, I can see it. I'm trying to find the part where it said the Spanish. Okay, the Spaniards. So, family, if you could focus your attention on the top left, in that paragraph, you'll see where it says the Spaniards who have inhabited America under the Torah zones, right? So this is the section that the book that Uncle O is quoting. But go to the top of that paragraph. I mean, this is, you kind of pick it up in the middle of the paragraph. It says, "We come now to the second and opposite case, for a proof of which we shall appeal to the words of Dr. Mitchell."
Wait a minute, repeat that again so that way they understand again, because
we come now to the second and opposite case, for a proof of which we shall appeal to the words of Dr. Mitchell. And don't ask me to pronounce that word. It's about to go transactions. Now, the reason why it says opposite, because in the paragraph before this one, remember, so this whole section is discussing a theory about climate, changing the color of people. So in the section above, they're talking about black people turning white. In this section, they're talking about white people turning black. That's why it says the opposite case. But they're going to clear everything up a little bit further down, a couple of pages down. They'll clear everything up. If you still on the fence, like, well, I don't know, Brother Benaiah, it is talking about Spaniards and them being light skinned. So maybe the Igbos were thinking that they were white people. And it's funny because the Igbos are like 80, like from a DNA perspective, 89.3% of Igbos, like Igbos are E1B1A. 89.3%. So if they're saying that they come from white people, black people, they're saying that you come from white people, black people, right? Because most of the so-called African Americans today are E1B1A. All right, y'all get it. All right. So if we could scroll on down, let's see what we have to say. It says they preserve themselves to be distinct. Okay, so now we're going to scroll down. Only thing about the the Kindle, and you probably run into the same thing because Kindle be messing up the page numbers.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I can pull this up in my PDF and it'll have the big fat page number at the top. But for whatever reason, Kindle, they knock that off and they give you this Kindle placement, which is, it kind of throws you off. But anyway, fam. But let's read. We're going to read down a little bit further in this section. It says on the bottom right. Oh, I'm sorry. I may have skipped. Let's see.
This part where it says they have preserved themselves.
Yes,
thanks to the rest of the world.
Yep, and it's talking about it's talking about the Jews, right? Because remember in Uncle O's book, he was talking about Jews. He was talking about the Eboan Jew, the Eboan Africans, the difference between the Eboan Africans and the modern Jews. That's what he was talking about. So we're going to go straight to the source. We're going to the part in the book where he's literally talking about Jews, and that's just funny that this kind of got a little left off. But anyway, it says I'm gonna start a little bit above the highlighted section, fam. It says we cannot have perhaps a more striking instance of this than in the Jews. These people are scattered over the face of the whole earth. They have preserved themselves distinct from the rest of the world by their religion. Excuse me. And as they never intermarry with any but those of their own, right in the section, guys, of their own feet, so that they have no mixture of blood in their veins, that they should differ from each other. And yet nothing is more true than that the English Jew is white.
Wait a minute. Y'all better pay attention to this. Go ahead, cuz.
The English Jew is white. The Portuguese Jew, swarthy.
I
thought the Portuguese Jews were white because they moved into Portugal and then they mixed and they got dark, and then you see where we're going, fam. Oh goodness.
What does it say? What is the definition for swarthy? Is right on the screen. Dark skin.
Kill with the right click. Kill with the right click.
I just want to, since it was right there, it's like, hey, since we got the Kindle up, so at least you could pull the definition up right then and there.
Oh man.
It says right there, swarthy, adjective, dark skinned. Wait a minute. So when we see in Portuguese, we're referring to dark skinned Portuguese. I mean, since they want to label Uncle O of saying that the Igbos are trying to be white or not trying to be white or descended from white people, and they wanted to really talk about that text right here. He's saying that what the Portuguese, the person that he said is the specialist at this, said the Portuguese are swarthy.
Yep.
So Uncle O referred to this guy, right? And this guy wrote down that the Portuguese are what? Swarthy.
That's a good point, because Uncle O said, "Hey, that's above my pay grade when you're talking about the colors. I'm gonna defer you to the good Reverend." He said the Reverend figured it out, right? The Reverend figured it out, and what threw people off, or threw some folks off, is what he quoted from the good Reverend. But then we went to the Reverend source, and so now we're getting clarity on what the good Reverend's talking about. The Reverend's talking about the Portuguese Jews being swarthy, and don't worry, fam, we're not finished yet. Just in case somebody's screaming in their chair, like, well, but he's talking about them being white. Oh, they're gonna clear everything up, fam. Let's keep going. But hopefully you can see on your screen: English Jew is white, Portuguese Jew swarthy, the Armenian olive, and the Arabian copper. Let's see, because you have it on your next screen here.
Yep.
All right, so he's gonna wrap up his discussion. Let's see. It says, in short, that there appear to be as many different species of Jew as there are countries in which they reside. All right, so what else do they have to say? It says, to these facts, we shall add the following observation, that if we can give credit to the ancient historians in general, a change from the darkest black to the purest white must have actually been accomplished.
Wait a minute, read that again for the people at the back.
To these facts, we shall add the following observation, that if we can give credit to the ancient historians in general, a change from the darkest black, blue-black, to the purest white must have actually been accomplished.
So he's saying that the white people came from black people. But they said, Uncle O said that all black Jews come from white Jews, and that the Igbos come from white Jews. But here, the source that Uncle O make reference to is pointing out the origins of all coming from black.
Yep. See, that's what happens when you don't check out that full reference. I'm telling you, fam. That's why we said at the top of the session, hey, you better check your receipts, fam, because you're gonna have people. We're in the stage now where you're going to start to see people that look like you, that's going to get in front of you and start trying to feed you some of these false informations. And it's on you, fam, to go and check the receipts. That's all we're saying. Check the receipts yourself, because we not brought this up, that lie would have been circulating out there for who knows how long, right?
And real quick too, family, this is why I say in part 1, if you listen to it, go back and watch part 1. I literally say that he lied in every second of that video.
Every second.
And I purposely didn't go into Uncle O, but could have gone into Uncle O, but held back on that portion of it. Not because couldn't go there, because as Benea pointed out, we already, from right off the top, heard the lies that he was saying. And we have the sources here to completely debunk everything that he would say about Uncle O and lying on him, blatantly lying. Not just him, but all those, including the person, the white guy that Cousin Benea shared on his first PowerPoint slide. This crafty counsel to undermine and literally, how can I put it, desecrate someone who passed along, who transitioned, someone who can't even defend himself right now.
Right.
And that's why we're here. Go ahead, cuz. I'm sorry.
No. They are literally ancestry graveyard robbers. Right. That's literally what they are. They'll wait until folks are long and gone, and all of a sudden all these attacks start coming when they can't speak for themselves. And this is funny about even the church, about how they attacked this church. you know, after the person that literally wrote the history book, they nipped all that stuff in the bud, in the big fat history book that nobody want to check out about who they were and what they believed. And they want to override that with some new stuff, you know. Anyway, but yeah, because if you don't have any other comments on this one, like actually back on the slide on slide 20.
Okay, let me put that slide back up here.
Okay,
let's stop this.
And that's the one we were talking about, Uncle O's sources. Like Uncle O lied on his sources. That was one of the accusations that was out there, fam. That my Uncle O, when he wrote his his book, that when he started quoting sources, he lied, fam. That's what they said. That's what Garfield said. So if you're wondering why, it's like, Brother Benaiah, why you commenting on this? Because you're talking about my uncle. I gotta jump in and just set the record straight, right? For all my Igbo brothers and sisters that are out there, because literally they're attacking the Igbo ancestry, the history, and I think I would be, derelict in my duties, knowing what we know, and not say anything. You know what I mean? Knowing that when I'm looking at some of these videos, I'm like, ooh, he just lied on that one. Ooh, he just gave a 2-for-1 on that one. Good gracious! Oh, I didn't realize you can do 5 lies in 1 minute. That's a record. Oh, that brother's skilled. Oh, good gracious! He's a lying black belt. But yeah, because on slide 20, that's the one where it talks about Uncle O lied on his sources.
Let's see, slide 20.
Yeah.
Actually, let me pull it up here.
Next one. And that one has the audio file.
You know what? I think I may have forgotten to bring that one in. I think I can still import it though.
Okay. Will it play? I mean, well, I don't know if
it may still play. Let me see here.
Yeah, if not, you can try to load it if possible.
You know, I'll do it the other way. I'll share my whole screen. Let me know if you can hear the sound. Let me try it this way.
So the fam, this is another attempt to discredit Uncle O by saying he wasn't truthful, that he's a liar, that he wasn't truthful when he quoted some of his references. That this Igbo brother was a liar. No, I don't think we hear any audio, cuz.
All right, let me try it now.
No.
Can you hear it?
No, it's not coming through.
Let me see something here. I'll take care of it. Give me 1 second.
Okay, no problem, cuz.
Let me stop the sharing.
Yeah. So, I mean, literally, cuz. I mean, fam. Like my cousin was saying. I mean, there's a lot that we could have brought out, right? I mean, and I'm not, and don't worry, I'm not going to keep you up all night going through the through the lies of the apologist or the lies of Garfield. That's not my aim, not my goal, right? We got better things to do, but I do want to, while we do have this time, right? I do want to set the record straight and kind of just echo some of the, the things that, Brother Dante Force, and shout out to Brother Dante, and the Teo Ministry, shout out to Teo Ministries, that they've been trying to, share with Israel at large, and that is, some of these brothers out here, man, y'all better watch out, because they do some shady stuff with these lessons, and they literally have a goal to try to stop the awakening. But as my brothers Teo Ministries said beautifully, like, you're not going to stop the Most High's awakening. Like, you're just not going to be able to do that. I mean, Most High's awakening is coming, whether you like it or not, right? So, and the folks that are on the other side trying to stop it, you better watch out for judgment coming down the street, right? You better watch out for judgment. I'm telling you, because eventually that check's gonna come due. You're trying do the works of Hasatan, but then you don't want to pay that bill at the end of the day. Yeah.
All right, let's see here. I'm putting it up right now because give me another minute and it'll be on your screen. Let me see here. I'm just downloading. In the process of uploading it right now.
Yeah, but if y'all get a chance, definitely check out Uncle O's book. I would encourage you all to go and get it and read it. They even have an audio version out there. That's so if you're busy around the house and you don't necessarily have time to walk around with the book in your hand, you can actually listen to a narrative of Uncle O's book. I actually did it while I was on a long road trip, and I had the opportunity to listen to his book multiple times, right? And then before I actually got a physical copy of his book.
All right.
Go ahead.
No, great, because I'm just letting you know I'm uploading it right now. Shouldn't take no time.
Yeah. Yep. And when you do that, you'll find it's interesting the way his book is laid out, because what the critics will say, and these are the people that are trying to come against Uncle O's legacy. They'll say things like, well, Uncle O, we have a problem with his book, but it's just the first part of his book. It's like, why does he only have a problem with the first part? They say that he's some of his information is fictional, in that this is going back to that European gentleman that came against Uncle O after he passed away. They were trying to say that some of his stuff was kind of made up, and there was actually also an African gentleman that came against it too. And basically, it was funny when you go through the arguments. Argument one, we talked about the name Gustavo Vasa, and him saying that he was not him saying, but those two references that said that supposedly said that he was from South Carolina, and we saw that first reference was when he was a slave, when he was 14 years old, and we pointed out that slaves weren't going around writing nothing down as far as where they're from, especially on these manifests. That was done for him. And then we also pointed out on that second reference, that one from 1775 or around that time, and that was a ship manifest. And we pointed out that if you go to the source of the direct source and look at it for yourself, you'll find that Gustavo Vasa isn't even listed in there. It's a gentleman by the name of Gustavo Weston, which is not him, but this European was saying that it was him, right? And that's why we were saying that you need to check this thing out yourself. And let me know, cuz, if you have it up and go and ready.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and run it. I don't want to take up too much.
Okay.
This is what Equiano did. It's public. Equiano actually lied on his sources, because we actually, Dagger Squad, what we do is we go to the primaries and check them. And when we check Dr. Gill said nothing that Equiano said. It's only, and this book confirms it. He's the one that's claiming it exclusively. Exclusively. All right. So and also, if you notice what he said, indeed, this is the position of Dr. Gill, who in his commentary on Genesis very aptly deduces the pedigree of the Africans from Afar and Afra, the descendants of Abraham by Keturah, his wife and concubine. I want to say this. Dr. Gill does not say that. I'm not taking up for the white man, but I'm just...
You can stop it, guys.
Okay.
So basically, he's saying Dr. Gill didn't say that. Uncle O just made that up, right? And that was the part of Keturah in Africa. Now, it might get a little tricky for you, because if we could, I just want to show family that section that we're talking about in Uncle O's book.
You want me to pull his book up?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I hate to do that to you, cuz, but just,
no, it's all good, cuz. Let me stop this cam.
Just want family to see the section that we're talking about, and see what Garfield's saying that Uncle O lied on that, and that Dr. Gill never said. Right.
We also have to clear up too. Even in this same book, I think he tried to say chapter 11. Uncle O shows Uncle O was selling slaves.
Let's see. I I think I got that one in there. Hopefully, I didn't.
Okay, yeah. If you probably do. I know that was one that when I heard him, I was like, what? Where is he coming out with that one? You know, that I read the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway,
you know what? Cuz I actually don't. Oh man, I think I was getting tired of going through them. Oh man.
But even then,
we can get it.
Even in the chapter, there's nothing in the chapter that or in this book at all, because what you were reading from, actually, I believe comes from that chapter. He was trying to make reference when he was talking about when you read about his name.
Yeah.
And the name being given to him, how he was, sold and how he was out on a ship with the owners. That's actually the chapter he was referring to.
Yeah. Well, so, and fam, just to kind of catch you up. So, like we said, there's a bunch of lies out there. And one of the lies was what we were talking about. He said Uncle O lied on the sources. And what cousin Dr. Kelly was talking about was that they also said that Uncle O owned slaves. And that he was, my bad, cuz I forgot to put that clip in there. I think I got busy. But yeah, literally Garfield talks about Uncle O being like this slave, getting into the slave trade, or however he puts it, right? But he's talking about Uncle O being in this the slave trade or whatnot. And that too, fam, is just a flat out lie. And he says, well, go and read chapter 11. Go and read chapter 11. And so in chapter 11, Most High willing, or is that?
I got it up. Can you see it, guys?
I can see it. So chapter 11, to give you a synopsis. Let's see. So just to give you a synopsis of what's happening, because you have to know what's happening at this point, right? So Uncle O, he's working as a servant to a doctor. He is a servant, fam. Uncle O's not running anything. That's the whole thing that you get from reading his book. He's not running nothing. He's a black man trying to survive. And in fact, you talk about Savannah like he said he hates Georgia. Because when he went to Georgia, something bad happened to him.
Yep. Let's not get too much of that.
Okay. I'm just saying, cuz Uncle O was just like I guess like the brother man today, right? He was just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Garfield transformed him to some slave owner. It's like what? So,
but he said he lied. He called him a liar. Said he lied on sources and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
If everything that Dr. Reggie said, that one breath he said he's honorable, but then he, in the next breath, he did exactly what Dr. Reggie said he would do, throw him under the bus, which he did.
And what gets people is that there's a sliver of truth in there. Like the whole thing about him being a slave, or him owning slaves, there's a sliver of truth in there, in that he was a servant to the doctor, right? He was working for this doctor, and the doctor's plans was the doctor wanted to set up a plantation somewhere, if I remember correctly, he went somewhere in the West Indies. And so the doctor sends Uncle O out there to get stuff done. So he sends Uncle O out there, and what Uncle O, the abolitionist, the one who's against slavery, does is epic. And this is something you got to tip your hat out to him. So first thing he does is, it's like if one of us was, heaven forbid we were alive back then, and you as a black man, you don't have any power except for the little bit of power those white masters gave you, right? And so you try to use what little influence you have to try to help your brothers out any way you can. So one of the things that he does is that when he goes out and he's collecting the slaves for his masters, he says, well, let me get my countrymen. I'm gonna get my people. So he goes and gets his people, right? And let's see, do we have that one over here? Because I'm not sure if I apologize, fam. We didn't have that one highlighted.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to highlight it. Let me see here.
Zero my slips it. No, maybe if you do a search to see.
Now, which you want me to search? I'll try to search for.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the key words in that. I know my countrymen might be one.
Now this is where it says here.
Okay. I went with the doctor on board the Guinea Man to purchase some slaves to carry with us and cultivate the plantation. That's what I was talking about. So he's working for the doctor, right? And it says, and I had minus them. All right. And it should be around here to say, so the doctor now with some of the others went ashore. Okay.
Here it is right here. Looking to set up.
Yeah. We're employed in the manner. But I think the part that we're looking for, cuz I think it's near the back of the chapter, because basically at the end of the chapter, Uncle O's trying to get out from up underneath the doctor. And to do that, he has to, he's petitioning the doctor to release him, right? And the doctor doesn't want to release him. But when the doctor finally relents, and he tells his brothers and sisters that he got right to work on the plantations, I want you to see what he says. I want you to see how the slaves reacted to him leaving and why. And she said he could help me. Da, da, da.
Is it right here?
Yeah, just bear with us, man. Yeah, it may have been. Then I informed the doctor by letter how I was treated. Yeah, actually, yeah. Let me see if I can speed this up, fam.
Right here it says, during which slaves were fed and comfortable, a white overseer had supplied my place, and this man.
Yeah, that's after. That's after he left.
Oh yeah.
So it's before. It's before that.
Let's see.
Yeah, it's before, because I think that's when he's on the vessel. So it's before. Yeah. That might be a page or two back.
Okay.
All right.
Because I know what you're talking about, because I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I should have highlighted it. I didn't highlight it like I normally do.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. We can come back to it. Properly care, the whole care of the vessel. Da, 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 da.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, this is it. All my countrymen and slaves, and the slaves, when they heard of my leaving them, were very sorry.
Yep, that's it. So this is Uncle O, the abolitionist, right? Uncle O, the abolitionist, and so at this point, Uncle O is separating from the good doctor, and you can see it in the paragraph right above it. That's that small little section where it says the bearer Gustavo Vasa, because basically, the doctor has to kind of give him he's giving him a letter, right, confirming his employment, and says the bearer Gustavo Vasa has served me several years with strict honesty, sobriety, and fidelity. I can therefore with justice recommend him for these qualifications, and indeed in every respect I consider him as an excellent servant. He wasn't running nothing, fam. I do hereby certify that he always behaved well and that he is perfectly trustworthy. All right. And so then when we get into the narration of when Uncle O leaves, it says, though I was much attached to the doctor, I was happy when he consented to my going. I got everything ready for my departure and hired some Indians with a large canoe to carry me off. All my poor countrymen, the slaves, when they heard of me leaving them, were very sorry, as I had always treated them with care and affection, and did everything I could to comfort the poor creatures and render their condition easy. Right? That's what Uncle O did, fam. That's what Uncle O did. And so what Garfield did, he changed that until Uncle O was a slave trader. And he was trying to get into the slave trade. And that's why I say fam, we're kind of sitting up here listening to this like, man, this dude's he's just lying, throwing lie after lie after lie. It's like, man, he's deceptive. So you see it for yourself, fam. That's the section that Garfield used to try to say that Uncle O was a slave trader, or some sort of slave, whatever. Right.
Yeah, he literally said that he sold slaves.
Yeah, he was trying to get into the slave trade. I wish we had the sound bite so that you could hear it in his own way, right?
Yeah.
But but just know that it was a straight up lie, right? And then the other one, like I said, I don't want to keep family too long, but the other one on the list here was getting ready to go into let's see. Oh, Uncle O lied on his references. He lied on his references, right? And
because you want me to bring the slide the presentation back up?
Yep, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'll stop this here.
This is another lie. And like I said, I appreciate brother Dante, because he was like, when they was trying to sucker him into a debate with him, because brother Dante, I mean, he's kind of where I'm at with this, because it's like, why would you go on there, right? And they're gonna cut you off, they're gonna not give you the full chance to present yourself, and then you're presenting to a people that don't want to know the truth in the first place. I mean, to me, it's like a lost cause, right? And I think my brother Teo said something to that same effect. Like, they don't want to know the truth. No matter what you bring out, it's not good enough. No matter what DNA you bring out, you don't know what you're looking at, right? Even though it's plain as day, even though it checks all the boxes, even though if this was a court case, the person would be convicted and we'd be waiting on his sentencing, right? Is that overwhelming as far as the information that we have. But anyway, fam, if you look at the screen, this is the part where Garfield said Uncle O lied. It's like when it says, indeed, this is the opinion of Dr. Gill. So he says, Dr. Gill didn't say that, right? Remember that? It says, Dr. Gill, who in his commentary on Genesis very aptly deduces the pedigree of the Africans from Afar. Now remember this, fam, I got it in green for a reason. From Afar and Afra, the descendants of Abraham by Keturah, his wife and concubine, right? And so this, Uncle O saying that this is in Dr. Gill's commentary on Genesis. So let's look at the commentary of let's look at Dr. Gill's commentary on Genesis. And I think we'll have it on the next slide. All right, here we go. So Dr. Gill's commentary, you can find it in like Bible tools, Bible study tools. And you can see where it says Genesis chapter 25, verse 4. So we're specifically going to look at Dr. Gill's exposition on the Bible, the book of Genesis, chapter 25, verse 4. Right? Genesis chapter 25, verse 4, Dr. Gill's commentaries on this specific verse. And he says, and the sons of Midian, the fourth son of Abraham by Keturah, he had 5 sons, next mentioned, who were heads of so many tribes of families in Midian. Hence, we read of 5 kings of Midian. And you can see the names Ephra, Hanok, right? And it says, the 2 first of these, whom Cleodemus calls Afra, and Afra. That sounds familiar, right? You remember that in Uncle O's book? Calls Afra and makes them to be the sons of Abraham by Keturah. When they were his grandsons, he says, from them the city of Afra in all Africa. All Africa. So what do you see, fam? In Dr. Gill's commentary on Genesis chapter 25, verse 4, Uncle O correctly quoted his reference. Not only that, because he actually gives two references in there, because I think I have the second one on the next screen. You can advance to the next one. All right. So this is the other reference that Uncle O quotes in that same paragraph. And that's with Clark, John Clark. And you can see at the bottom, when you look at the title of the book, it says The Truth of the Christian Religion in 6 books. The author on the bottom right is John Clark, and that's who Uncle O was quoting. And again, let's look at the reference. Namely, those that descend from Keturah, right? Concerning whom there is a famous place in Alexander. I'm going to skip ahead, where it says that Abraham had many children by Keturah, to 3 which gave the names Aphor, Asher, and Afra. Assyria is so called from Asher. And it says, and from the other 2, Aphor and Afra, the city of Afra, the country of Africa, is denominated, which is exactly what Uncle O was saying. So you can see Uncle O correctly stated it. Garfield was straight up lying. Right? You heard it for yourself, fam. So that's the information that we're trying to bring out. And yes, there's more. I can tell you there's more, fam. But I don't want to beat a dead horse. Let me see what else. I just want to get some of the big ones out the way here. Let me know if I'm missing anything, because I know there was one claim that Uncle O that he didn't claim Igbo after the second edition of his book, which is
yeah.
I don't have any clips of that, but if you buy his, if you buy his book, or if you get the 9th edition of the book and do a search for Igbo, you will still find Igbo in that book. Actually, there's 4 things of Igbo in there, and there's one Igboan in there, and that's specifically when he's talking about Israel and his people. So no, Uncle O's not disassociate himself with Igbo. That is also a lie. And I think I'm gonna leave that one there, because I think we covered most of the main points there. And the lesson of the day, fam, check your own references, read it for yourself. Definitely when you see, like, brothers like Garfield out there that are, I mean, heck, he even has a book out there. He's better than me in that respect. And Most High willing, eventually someday, Most High willing, I get a book out. But it is a straight up lie, fam. It's a lie fest, right? Just lie to lie to lie. I'm not sure how many we went over today.
Covered a lot, and it's plenty more to cover.
I got a list, and we tried to just cover the main ones. I know we talked about some quite a bit, but trust me, fam, it's a doozy. So yeah, people trying to come against your awakening, and they'll try to throw you some some false narratives, and they'll try to use a face that looks like yours to do it. So I'm gonna leave it at that and get me some water.
So family, again, this is why I did part 2, because I want to further prove to you exactly what I stated in part 1, that everything that Garfield had said in that video lie. I said I could pick apart every detail of it, made it clear. And I appreciate my cousin Bened coming on and really going in on with Uncle O, because that I know for sure it was going to help bless each one of you guys. And as we heard it, heard some of the things that he said, I mean, I couldn't help but to laugh, like, man, this guy is lying about every detail. So me not touching on Uncle O in the first video, I purposely did not touch on him. I want to kind of like the old school, right? And I'll share this story real quick, and we'll get ready to wrap up here. But when I was 12 years old, walking to school, and back when I was young, right, it was all about having a goose down, right? And I remember my mother brought me and my brothers when she was overseas. She brought us these special goose downs, right? That had you take the sleeves off and they become vests. So back home, it was all about the goose down bombers in the wintertime. So I was 12 years old walking to school and I got robbed. I literally got robbed. I was probably about 2 or 3 blocks away from school, right in front of police officers. Some guys robbed me for my coat. Some older guys. I was 12 years old. So make a long story short, I went home and my older cousins, my older brothers and all them, they were in the house and I told them what happened. So my oldest cousin and my older brother, just 2 of them came with me, asked me to take them to where everything took place. So we went out there walking and as we went to the spot, I spotted the 2 of the guys and I was like, they go 2 of the guys right there. And one of them had my coat with them, had it on actually, and took off running. Both of them took off running. And my cousin didn't do anything. My cousin Khalif didn't do anything. He said, hey, let him go. So I was mad. I was like, wait a minute, my coat is right there. We walked home. And when we got to the house, he said the reason why we didn't need to chase behind him, he said, only thing I wanted to do is get an idea of where they are. He said by them running, they out of fear, they ran to where they would normally hang out at. So wherever you saw them run to, that's where they reside at. And I was like, wow, didn't think anything of it. And needless to say, they got my coat back later on that evening. So I said all that to say is that first video was just put out there, of course, to call Garfield out, but then also let you guys see who's all connected to this crafty council. It's more that's connected, but who are connected to this crafty council, right? And he made it clear that he did not write that portion of the video PowerPoint and that someone else did. And I'm not going to mention the person name, not even worth it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that is really insignificant to me. You know, it's very insignificant. So I could care less about what he and his little crew got to say about trying to defend what they did, this forgery, the blatant lies. But I want to make it clear it was purposely done so you can see exactly how all of these guys are connected, from the conscious community to the Christian church, how they're all coming together to try to sabotage this awakening. If it was, I mean, they don't do this for the Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't do this towards anyone else but our people. Why? Because they know we are the people of the book. When they have to go that to above and beyond with these lies, that tells you that they know what the truth is. So yeah, family. So that's why I just wanted to share that with you and tell you guys that don't get caught up in the chit chatter. Don't let them move the goalposts, as Benea pointed out. My video, no, there was no misunderstanding. I understood exactly what these guys were doing and continue to try to do. And again, as Benea pointed out, Dante did an excellent job with the videos that he did. And I encourage you guys to watch those videos that he posted almost a week and a half of just going in on Garfield and the doctrine, the moving of the goalposts. So give them all props for that. So again, anything else you want to share? Because I know your voice, because I lost my voice on Thursday and just got my voice, really getting my voice back. So, anything else you want to share with the people?
Yeah, I'm over here chugging down some water, trying to get my voice back. But hey, just like I said, word of caution to fam. Just do your own homework. Thank you for tuning in. And just know that this truth, man, it's one of those irrefutable type truths. And when people try to come at it, they got to come at it. They have to come at it a certain way, right? I mean, you'll start to see people pop up with, holding a whole bunch of new references in their back pocket, right? With a whole bunch of new references in their back pocket to try to come at it. Like that's one of the ways to do it. And now you're seeing the next iteration of that, and that is, we keep saying, yeah, use old books. And so what they do, they go and try to find the old books, but it's the old books that don't talk about Jews and black, but it's those books that have that ambiguity, like it's not really clear, and those are the ones they're trying to run with. So that's the next phase. So what you're witnessing, fam, is just the next phase of them trying to stop the awakening, but it's not going to happen, fam. So love you, fam, man. I thank you so much for tuning in, fam. I wish all of you the best, Israel, and like my cousin say, peace and blessings. Hallelujah.
And cuz anyone you want to throw inside the garbage can before we wrap up?
Oh, you can put the pesky cat in there.
And I'm mad, man. You know why? Because when I was in high school, right, Garfield was my character. That was my nickname, Garfield, because of my sleepy eyes, and I love lasagna. But when I used to do graffiti, that was my tag, right? My friend Will, I had two friends named Will, and both of them were artists as well. And one of them had the Smurf as their tag, and so another one had a Transformer. So for me, it was Garfield. So when I would draw Garfield with wearing a sheepskin and gazelles, you know what I mean? And we used to do battle graffiti like that. So that's what's so interesting. It's like, man, I can't even use that. You know what I mean? You made the actual character look bad with all these lies.
Yeah, tainted the real thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, family, we're gonna give Garfield the garbage can. And anyone that call themselves trying to defend Garfield and say that I misunderstood or misunderstood whatever he had done and however he presented his information, I misunderstood the lies that he told. I'm just going to play this right here.
Who is this person who speaks to me as though I needed his advice?
I have declared Philip my High Counselor.
Is he qualified?
I am skilled in the arts of war and military tactics, sir.
Are you? And tell me, what advice would you offer on the present situation?
So I had to use that one because for those that are trying to defend and try to come up with all kinds of videos, and that's for those guys. I could care less about what they have to say, because it's almost like how the old school would have the kids sit at the kiddie table, and you go to some of my relatives down in the deeper south, they had the adult table, the kiddie table, and they had newspaper or towels on the floor for the babes. So some of these guys are sitting on the newspaper. So I'm going to throw all of them as well inside the garbage can. And guys, if you have anyone that you want to throw in the garbage can real quick before we wrap up, post it real quick, and we're out of here. All right, let's see if I see anyone in here. We'll get ready to wrap it up. All right, but nevertheless, family, again, in the day and time that we live in, especially with dealing with this this pandemic. Matter of fact, somebody said give him a 3-piece. All right, I'll give him a 3-piece real quick as we wrap up. Matter of fact, let me give him a combination of the three-piece. Let me give him a three-piece. Here's the two sides. And let's place their order to go. All right. So with that being said, family, as the Most High encouraged Israel, especially as Israel was dealing with a critical time as they came out of the Egyptian from under the Egyptian bondage, but they was in transition to go to the promised land, and they had an obstacle in front of them, the water before them, and the Egyptians coming up behind to try to kill them. But the Most High told Moses to encourage Israel with these words in Exodus chapter 14, verse 14 and 13 and 14. He said, "Fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of Yahweh." These Egyptians that you see here today, right? They will not have power over you again. Will not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you, but you have to hold your peace. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. And when it says hold your peace, it's the Hebrew word is charash, and charash means be quiet. Peace.